What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. I decided I'm going to give this whole podcast thing another shot just because I've been finding that it's really hard to get all my thoughts out on Twitter alone. And it's hard to clarify what I mean sometimes, and then you just end up going back and forth with somebody. And maybe I spend a little too much time on Twitter lately. I tend to do that in the off season. But yeah, I just wanted to start this thing back up. I don't really know what I'm going to call it. The last time I tried to do a podcast, I think I called it Trading Bases, which is objectively just like a horrible name. It's not specific to the Tigers at all, and it's not clever. So I'm going to think up a better name for this one, and any ideas would be wonderful. I'm hoping this time around I'll stick with it and perhaps have some guests on. Maybe eventually a co-host would be great. But it's okay. I'm not too concerned if I do a podcast by myself. I kind of enjoy just getting my ideas out there. So, without further ado, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about why I'm here. I want to talk about what's been going on in the Tigers offseason. And right now, I think the biggest storyline anybody can talk about is Tarik Skubal, myself included, by the way. I've been tweeting nonstop about it, dreaming up trade scenarios, all that stuff. And I think they're probably not going to trade him, if we're just being honest. I mean, they're probably not going to. I'm kind of in the camp now that I think that they should, but it's a really complicated thing to look at because he's the best player on your team. By far and away, he's the best pitcher of baseball. He's the best player on your team. He is the face of your franchise currently. And there is a statement to be made about keeping him around and keeping him as the face and what that says to the league, what it says to fans, what it says to just people in general. And, Tarik, he, like, as a personality, he fits Detroit. And so it would be great to keep him long term. It really would. It's not looking like that's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to, shill out the kind of money. Even if Chris Ilitch, which, by the way, I mean, Chris Ilitch gets a lot of flack for being cheap, and perhaps that is true, especially compared to his dad, but I don't think he's as cheap as we make him out to be sometimes. I mean, he's been willing to sign off on some big contracts. I mean, he signed Javi Baez, he paid Eduardo Rodriguez, he paid Jordan Montgomery, not Jordan Montgomery, I'm sorry. My mind is blanking. Jordan Zimmerman. He paid him, there's been some contracts he's been willing to shell out the money, and maybe that's why he's gotten a little more cautious is because of how poorly some of those have worked out. But he was about to shell out $170 million to Alex Bregman last year, so that's no joke. But I don't think he's going to pay $400 million for Skubal. And I don't know if that's solely an Illich decision, to be honest. Even if he was willing to shell it out, I don't know if Scott Harris, based on his philosophy and how he decides to run an organization, I don't know if that's something he would do. There is an inherent risk with any pitcher, no matter how good they are. It could be Paul Skeens right now. There's an inherent risk to extending somebody for that much time as a pitcher because they are putting more strain on their body every time they go out there than any other guy on the field. And I don't mean that in a sense of like obviously a catcher's out there, squatting and he's putting a lot of strain on his body, and everybody out there is, but the thing that makes a pitcher good is his arm, and he's using that to throw the baseball, 100 times a game, depending on the manager. So it's a lot, and pitcher injuries are through the roof, and you never know. I mean, people are recovering better than ever. A lot of guys now are coming back and are really good, but you got Skubal, who's almost 29, I want to say, and he, who knows how the aging curve is going to hit him. I mean, he's going to want an 8 to 10 year deal. He's not going to hit free agency until he's almost 30. So you've got a guy who's almost 30. He's kind of a two-pitch pitcher. He throws a sinker along with his fastball, but they kind of work the same. And then he's got the knuckle curve and the slider. He doesn't use those very often. If you look at his usage rates, the slider more than the curve, but mainly it's the fastball and the changeup. And I say fastball, I mean that the four seam and the sinker interchangeably. So you wonder if the velocity dips, right? If he starts getting a few years down the road and instead of 98 to 100, he's sitting 94 to 96 consistently. Does he have a big enough arsenal a big enough repertoire that he can maintain that level of success. If his fastball and his changeup are no longer this big gap in velocity difference, if hitters don't have to be on top of a 101 miles an hour, and now they can just sit on 95, does that make him a lot more hittable? And so I think his changeup's going to continue to be effective. I don't think he'll ever be a bad pitcher, but is he only a couple years away from not being worth 40 million? And that's the question. That's the question. I don't know if Scott Harris is willing to shell it out for anybody. I just don't think he would. I think he's more willing for a hitter. I don't think there's been a hitter out there besides Bregman that he's really wanted to put the money out for, and I don't think he's going to do it this offseason based on the things that we're hearing, unless Bregman's market falls apart and, towards the end he's willing to accept another shorter deal, 3 or 4 years, maybe some opt-outs. I don't know. The Tigers might do that. It doesn't sound like they're going to do a 6-year deal or whatever he's probably asking for again. So I've kind of put that one in the back of my mind. But yeah, I just don't think Tarik Skubal's going to get paid by the Tigers. I don't know who's going to pay him. Somebody will. I'll be really happy for him to get the money that he's going to get. I'll be really sad to see him go. And right now, there's a whole question of if you're not going to pay him, is it worth riding out the last season with him or trading him for the most value you can get him? And I think the consensus is if you're going to keep him, you have to go for it. You have to put a roster around him that you are confident has a really good shot at winning the World Series. And the problem is, the league is really top heavy. I mean, the Dodgers, you're not going to put a team as star-studded as the Dodgers. You got to put a team together good enough to meet the Dodgers in the World Series. And then all you got to do is beat them in a 7-game series. You don't have to be the better team on paper. You just have to be able to beat them in a 7-game series. Right now, I don't think the Tigers could come close to doing that. I don't think they have the firepower to be able to compete with the Dodgers in a series like that. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. Who knows? But I just don't think that's likely with the current makeup of the team. So I think Tarik Skubal probably should be traded. I think you should probably send him, ideally not to the Dodgers. I mean, they have maybe the best package you can get back for him. But, I mean, the Mets have a good package they could send back if they're willing. They've missed out on Alonso. They've missed out on Diaz. It sounds like that was purposeful based on all the stuff going on over there. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're loading up to make a big trade for Skubal, and maybe they think that they can pay him afterwards and keep him around long term. I'd certainly rather see him there than I would in LA or on the other side of New York in the Bronx. So it's the lesser of the evils, I guess. And if you can somehow, some way, I don't think they're going to, but if you could somehow, some way pry away Nolan McLean from the Mets, that's job well done. You're probably looking more at like Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, Jet Williams, maybe Carson Bench. Probably not. It's not going to be the top level guys that I've probably been pushing for on Twitter, and I'm aware of that. I really like to come up with these fantastical trades and ideas. So yeah, you never know. But I think Tarik Skubal being a Tiger this season would be great. In the sense of, like, I would love to watch him pitch for the Tigers one more time, one more season. But I also, from like a baseball standpoint, the Tigers' rotation is going to lose all three of Skubal, Flaherty, and Mize after the season is over. And I don't know what the plan is because they don't have many guys in AAA or AA. You've got a lot of younger guys in the pitching side, but not many ready to step up. And so right now, I mean, you're looking at the 2027 rotation, and I don't know who's your number one pitcher. Is it Job? Is it Melton? I mean, Job and Melton shouldn't be your opening day number one pitcher. I hope that they really start to develop. Job's not going to have a whole lot of time in 2026. Melton hopefully will. Is Olsen your number one guy in 2027? I mean, you're going to have to make a big signing. You need a frontline starter. You're going to need to make a trade. So you trade Skubal and you get one of these guys, a Tong, hopefully a McLean. You're not going to, but maybe a Sheehan from the Dodgers. As much as I would hate that trade, Sheehan's really good. And you got some proven arms at the major league level that can slot into that rotation. And if we were talking about Tong, who had a 40% strikeout rate in the minors, I mean, that's insane. I don't know if he'll be able to keep. I mean, he won't be able to keep that level at the majors. I highly doubt it. But I mean, he can certainly be a pretty dominant pitcher, and he could be a frontline starter. And so you're walking into that, and hopefully you build some depth. But at the end of the day, despite all that I'm saying about it, I would prefer Tarik Skubal to just stay a Tiger, be extended, spend the rest of his career there. Like, despite the risks, despite the cost, it's you don't get this kind of talent that often. Justin Verlander, I'm happy for him that he won 2 World Series. If I could go back in time and make it so he never left the Tigers, I absolutely would. And that's selfish of me, but you don't get to see your favorite team carry that kind of talent that often, especially in Detroit. Maybe if you're the Dodgers, you get that kind of talent all the time, but not in Detroit. So you cherish it. You get guys like Cabrera, Verlander, now Skubal. You cherish it, and you hope they stick around. But it might not happen. Scott Harris has got the no untouchables thing going on. He doesn't believe that anybody can be untouchable, and so if he gets the right deal, he's going to do it. And it's the business side of the game, and it's a hard thing to accept as a fan. You get pretty attached to these guys, and you have to learn to live with it, and it sucks. But if the team can maintain being good, and then they enter this window with McGonagall and all these guys where they compete and they can win a World Series, then it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad to see him go, but if it allows you to continue putting together a team that is competitive for a long time and can win 1 or more World Series, that would be amazing. That would be ideal. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's a really hard game. They haven't won in over 40 years. They might not win for another 40, for all we know. So that's my little spiel on Tarik Skubal right now. It's a lot to talk about this offseason, and I'm sure everybody's kind of tired of hearing about it. So I'll move on to the next thing. The Tigers brought back Kyle Finnegan during these winter meetings. That is really their only move of the winter meetings themselves, which is good. After they brought back Finnegan, they've essentially just reassembled everybody from the 2025 team. It's basically the same exact team, minus Andy Ibanez and a couple smaller names, but it's mostly the same team. And Kyle Finnegan is a good reliever. He's 34 years old. He's getting up there, so it's a 2-year deal. I don't think he'll, unless he's one of those guys that ages really well, plays till he's 40. I would imagine these next 2 years are probably going to be the only time he spends in Detroit. But he does have a really good fastball, good splitter. My only concern with Finnegan is we saw, and this is the case with anybody with a splitter, but when his splitter wasn't diving, I mean, he was so easy to hit. That thing was just hanging up, and they were just crushing it in the playoffs. So he's a really good pitcher. I'm glad he's coming back. He did an amazing job after coming over. They obviously see his usage and have found a way to maximize his abilities, and I think that's great. He's not going to be, in my opinion, he shouldn't be your go-to guy in the 9th inning, but he very well can be a high leverage high leverage reliever in the 7th or 8th inning. Come in, get guys out, and that's useful, and they needed that back, especially with the bullpen probably being their biggest weakness. So that's my spiel on Kyle Finnegan. Drew Anderson, a little before the winter meetings, they brought him in from the KBO. He was originally in the the organization a little bit ago, a couple years ago. He was at spring training, and then he was in the minor leagues for a little bit, and he was okay in the minors from my understanding, and then he was not very good at spring training. And then he went back to the KBO, and he had a really dominant season. He learned a kick change, and I guess that looks really good. I saw some video of that, and there's something there. They signed him as a starter, $7 million for year 1, and then a club option for $10 million for year 2 if he earns it. So I think myself and most people are seeing it as him as a reliever, a long reliever. Maybe a spot starter with injuries and stuff. You need that kind of depth. You need a guy that can step in the starter role. That's kind of what Kiter Montero has been doing, the last couple of years. So it certainly could work out. It's not a high stakes thing. It's not something I'm all that concerned about. If it's their only starting pitching move this offseason, then it's like, okay. I mean, what are we doing here? Because now we have our top three, rotation starters leaving after the season, and our only guy that we brought in this offseason is Drew Anderson. Like, we got to figure something out. I don't know if you can replace that much starting pitching in one offseason next offseason. You have to do some of it this offseason, I think. You just have to. It's not like you have a ton of guys in AAA ready to jump in. You've got Job and Melton, look great. Olsen, like, you've got some guys. But you've got to be more prepared for 2027. Like, you want to compete in 26, sure, but you also have to. They talk about not hurting their future while planning for the now. That you got to plan for the future here. You have to. You cannot go into 2027 with a barren rotation. So that's my whole opinion on Drew Anderson and that thing. And maybe he ends up being really good, and maybe he ends up being a part of their rotation in 2027 because he shows that he has the stuff. You never know. Things like that can happen. I don't anticipate it, but it could happen. So, we'll keep an eye on that this year and see how he does. And maybe he becomes a mainstay. Maybe he gets dropped off the team midseason and we never hear of him again. So, you never know. But, yeah, I mean, the thing that's really been bothering me about this offseason so far is, and I don't get me wrong, I'm really glad that Gleyber Torres and Jack Flaherty are coming back. I really am. They are good baseball players. I like Jack Flaherty. I think he's a bit inconsistent, and you can't rely on him to come out and dominate every game. But you can rely on him to compete. He's a competitor. He's kind of a psycho. I love that about him. He goes out there and he is a dog. Like, he wants it. And I do love that, and I'm glad to have him back. And Gleyber Torres out of all the guys on the team, he definitely has the best plate approach. He just does. I would like to believe that the hernia was the reason why his performance was really bad in the second half, because he was really good in the first half. And so if we get that version of first half 2025 Gleyber Torres throughout all of 2026, then I think that's going to be really good for us as a team. But the thing I don't like is they're kind of being boasted as additions right now, and then even Matt Vierling being able to have a spring training and Parker Meadows being able to have a spring training. That's all great, but I don't like that they're being touted as if this is some addition to the team. We just watched these guys play. Like, they were on the team. You're not, like, it is retaining, and that matters, because if they had left until you added somebody else, you would be worse. But now you're not worse. You're the same. And, ideally, all of your guys progress and get better next offseason, and then you are better. But you can't rely on that. This league has a lot of ups and downs. It's a really hard league. Spencer Torkelson has had a lot of ups and downs in his career. I mean, you would like to see him maintain or get even better, but there's every chance that he struggles again. Riley Green, he struck out over 200 times. Is that the version of him we're getting now? Or is that, a fluke? And is he going to fix that this offseason? Is his approach going to get better? Is he going to start taking more walks again? Colt Keith, what version of him are we getting? He's gotten better from year 1 to year 2. Is he going to continue to get better in year 3? Or is there going to be some hiccups? He started the year slow both years. Is he going to start the year slow again? There's a lot of question marks. And you're relying on a lot of guys to get better. I mean, you don't have these sure things in your lineup. You look at, like, teams like the Mets, and they've got Francisco Lindor, who's a sure thing. They've got Juan Soto, who's a sure thing. You've got some guys in your lineup that are a sure thing. But with Detroit, you've got a lot of young guys that you're hoping become sure things, but aren't currently, and you're banking on that. And I think you can, to an extent. I think that's part of it. Having a young team and having like guys develop. That's part of it. But you also need to bring in talent around them. You need these veteran bats, these proven bats like Ketel Marte. For some reason, Bob Nightingale to this day, 11 p.m. 12/10, December 10th. He is still saying the Tigers are fit for Ketel Marte. It seems like nobody else is reporting that. It doesn't sound like the Tigers would be willing to part with, something that would require to get it done. They want young, controllable pitching. The Tigers probably don't want to move Melton or Job. I would assume it would require that. I don't know. So you've got a tricky situation there. But the point I was getting at is Marte is a professional hitter. You're going to get good at bats. That you're going to get a good hitter in your lineup. There's this level of comfort that comes to having a player like that. And the Tigers have way too much uncertainty right now. And I think a player that's going to become like that is Kevin McGonigal. I know I've never felt this sure about a prospect before. I think, Tarik you felt really confident about. Riley Green you felt really confident about. But there were still question marks. With Kevin McGonigal, I would be genuinely shocked if he's not a really, really good baseball player. I mean, there's almost no holes in his game as a hitter. And maybe he gets to the big leagues and those holes that haven't been exposed yet get exposed, and we see that he's not this flawless hitter. But by all accounts, he's one of the most polished hitters that not only have the Tigers ever seen come through the minors, but baseball in general has ever seen come through the minors. And that's a large statement, but it's true. He's so polished. There's almost no holes in his game. And it's really impressive. And if he can stick at shortstop, that would be fantastic. But, he's not looking like he's going to start the year with the big league club, even though a lot of us probably believe he should. Jeff Greenberg made a statement about believing that each level is important. McGonigal hasn't played at AAA yet. Scott Harris, I guess, has left the door open a tad bit when it comes to that. But it still sounds like he's... At least for now, it still sounds like McGonigal's probably going to start in Toledo. And the question is, if he starts in Toledo, how long can you expect him to be in Toledo? I don't think this has to do with time manipulation, which has been a big thing with prospects over the course of baseball history. But like if you call him up in May, right? I don't know. Is that enough time in AAA? Is that... I just don't understand how this is weighed out. Does he need to spend the majority of the season in Toledo? Does he need to get a ton of at-bats there? Like, what do they need to see from him in Toledo? Does it have more to do with seeing him develop defensively in Toledo? I don't know. I don't know what they want to see in Toledo, and it'll be interesting to see how much time he spends there, if at all. Maybe he does end up making the big league club, which changes things. Which changes the outlook of the team a little bit. But he's also going to be a rookie, and you can't bank on that either. So the point is, you need to add. You need to add at least one professional hitter this offseason. I don't know how you do it. Bo Bichette's available. He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 for the next season. He's young. He's in that same timeline. He's younger than Kerry Carpenter. So you can fit him in that same timeline. You get him on a somewhere between 6 and 8 year deal, and you get him till he's between age 34, 36. You're gonna get his prime. He's not a great defensive shortstop, but I don't necessarily think that's a for sure thing. I think he can be better than he's shown defensively. I don't think he's necessarily this horrific shortstop. He's had moments where he's been okay, but he's also had moments where he's not been great. I think it's more of a range thing. Kind of like Derek Jeter, really good at fielding balls to him, not a large range. I just don't think Bichette has a great range as a shortstop, and for the offense he brings, it's probably worth it. So he's definitely an option, and I would love to see them bring him in because, again, he does fit their timeline. He can play shortstop until McGonigal's up. Gleyber Torres is going to leave after 2026. Bichette can move to second, or McGonigal can move to second if Bichette wants to stay at short, or Bichette can move to third. There's options. It depends on the construction of your team, but there are options. But there's a question of fit with everything right now. I mean, is Colt Keith your third baseman? Where's Max Anderson? How Lee going to get time? Or what happens if they start producing? Where do they slide in? And Max Clark, when is he going to come up? Can we expect him in 2026, or is 2027 more realistic? Jose Briseño, same deal. I mean, I don't think he's that far behind either of those guys. He's pretty dang good, and so there's questions to be had with all of these guys, and with it's a hard position for the front office to be in. I'll give them that, and I don't think it's excusable to not do anything though, and I think they do need to take action. It's not something that you can just sit by and run out the same squad. I don't think that's going to win you a World Series. I don't think that Tarik Skubal would necessarily want to extend with a team that didn't go out and try and get him a team to win. It's I don't know. They need to do more, and I think you get a good bat. Specifically, it'd be great if it's a right-handed bat. Alex Bregman, like I said, I don't think that's going to happen, but he would be a fit. Bo Bichette would be great. Ketel Marte's a switch hitter. He would be great. There are options out there, and there's probably others on the trade market that haven't really been explored that you could look into as well. And, because sometimes there are guys that get traded that weren't really on anybody's radar. Taylor Ward was a potential trade target, but like that for Grayson Rodriguez kind of came out of left field. I think things like that can kind of pop up. Maybe a guy that hasn't been necessarily rumored. If it wasn't in division, I would say trading for Byron Buxton would be really great. I think he'd be a really nice fit onto this team. The health concerns would be something to consider, but he's a really talented hitter, and they could use that kind of that stardom in their lineup. And he's a good center fielder if he stays healthy. He's a really good center fielder. So that defense that you get from Parker Meadows, you're not losing out on that to replace him. So I don't know. I just don't feel all that confident in the roster that they have right now. I think there's maybe they come out and prove us wrong. Maybe Spencer Torkelson takes the leap to be a top 5 to 10 first baseman in baseball. Maybe Riley Green cuts down the strikeouts and starts walking and puts himself in MVP conversations. Maybe Colt Keith takes the leap and becomes an all-star level hitter. And maybe Kevin McGonigal comes out the gates and runs away with Rookie of the Year. Maybe there's all these possibilities. Maybe Troy Milton comes out and he absolutely dominates. Maybe he proves himself to be a future ace, and you start to feel better about things. You never know. Things like that can happen. When you're running a team that's in its competitive window, I just don't think you can rely on those things. And I think that's the difference. I think you have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. And I think that's where safety nets come into play. And Gleyber Torres is a good example of that, but you only have him for the 1 year. If he were to get hurt, we've seen how, playing through an injury affects him, or if he gets hurt and misses time, that's a big loss to your lineup. You need more lineup protection. That's what you need. You need professional hitters in the lineup. You don't have enough of them now. Dylan Dingler, I haven't commented on him yet. I think what you've got in him is you've got your long-term catcher. He's elite defensively at the very least. He's a pretty solid offensive catcher. He's at his best is probably one of the best offensive catchers in baseball, but there's definitely some potential for regression there. He might not be the same hitter next season, especially as a catcher. Sometimes it ebbs and flows. He might have a down year offensively, and that can play a factor. And so that takes a good stick out of your lineup if he's having a down year, essentially. You throw him at the bottom, and then you can't really – I don't think you can rely on Zach McKinstry and Javi Baez. I know they were all-stars. They shouldn't have been. I'm sorry. I mean, McKinstry maybe deserved it. He had a good first half. But you look at his season as a whole, you look at how he finished the second half, and you look at his career, and you realize he's not an all-star caliber player. He's a good guy. He's a good clubhouse guy, great utility guy. Would love to have him on the team, on the bench, be able to fill in all these different spots. He should not be an everyday part of your lineup, not if you're trying to win a World Series. And so shortstop is a big question right now if you're not going to have McGonigal up. And, you can go in circles with this. There's just a whole thing. And then, center field, Max Clark is going to go there eventually. It's Parker Meadows. Is the version we saw of him last year, is that the real version? Is the version we saw in the second half of 2024, is that the real version? And he just never really caught up last year because of the injuries. I don't know. Because if you get second half 2024 Parker, or if like us, any semblance of that, then you're starting to feel a lot better about things. Kerry Carpenter is what he is. He's not going to play against lefties. He crushes righties. He's a platoon. He doesn't play elite defense, but he has a good arm, and he probably is somewhere around average. It's just, I don't know. I don't think you necessarily feel good about this current roster unless they bring somebody in. So that kind of leads me to my next point about Scott Harris. Is he seems to have this very strict ideology of building within, of his prospects, of his development team, and he's done a great job with his development team. I mean, I saw a story that was brought to my attention by somebody on Twitter, which impressed me, and I'm surprised it's not more common knowledge, that Scott Harris was actually the one that identified Skubal as a great candidate for his changeup being seam shifted wake. So not that he made Skubal the Cy Young pitcher, but he guided him in the direction needed for him to reach that level. And that's a pretty valuable thing to get out of your president of baseball operations. So there's some hope to have in the guy, and I think he's very smart, and I think he's put a lot of the right guys in place for development, and he's done a great job with drafting. But the business side of the game, the free agency, the trades, the dealing with other teams, other clubs, other GMs, like I don't know if he really has it with that, and that's the part that concerns me. Sometimes I wonder if he's a really great scout, if he's really good at certain aspects of being a president of baseball operations and really bad at others. Because some of the interviews he gives, especially at winter meetings here recently, were not very inspiring. I was not a big fan. So I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong. Maybe this offseason he will have kept quiet the whole time and actually had a master plan behind, and he's going to go get Ketel Marte, or he's going to go get Bo Bichette, or maybe he brings in Cody Bellinger. I don't know. Maybe it's all on the down low, and he's working in the shadows because he doesn't like to be public about his things. And you know what? Maybe the impending lockout does have Boris and Skubal scared a little bit. I doubt it, but maybe it does a little bit, and Skubal is more willing to take an extension because of it, and he wants to stay in Detroit, and Harris does get it done. He doesn't get traded, and it's glory day, So I don't know what's next for the team this offseason. I don't know. You definitely need to address the bullpen. You got Kyle Finnegan. That's not enough. They need a couple more guys, probably one or two, ideally two. And especially because you just need depth in the bullpen. Sometimes guys get hurt, guys struggle, guys fall apart. You need that interchangeability. You've got a lot of guys in the bullpen currently that have options, so you can bring in guys that don't and are more high level relievers, and hopefully just be a lot deeper in that front. So I like Pete Fairbanks. I don't think they're going to end up getting him as much as I kind of want him. But there's other guys out there. Brad Keller, they were talking about converting him to a starter, but I wouldn't hate him as a reliever. He was really good as a reliever. I'd prefer they just kept him as one. And, if they wanted to bring him in, that would be all right. You go look at the Savant page of a lot of these relievers. There's actually a lot of really good relievers out there. Ideally, they need more swing and miss. Mark Leiter Jr. just signed with the A's today, and he would have been an interesting one to bring in. He could help them a little bit, but they have options, and I hope that they're not done on that front. I don't think they are. Scott Harris didn't necessarily inspire confidence with that by talking about how he builds a bullpen with waiver claims and minor league trades and all that stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see. I still feel confident they're going to bring in at least one more decent size name from the free agent bullpen market. But I also hope they bring in a name for the starting pitching market. I think you need a at least 1 through 3 starter, a 3 starter at the minimum. Like a Zach Gallen, a Michael King, Ranger Suarez. They might not walk away with any of them. They've shown interest in a lot of them, but they've shown interest in everybody this offseason. Apparently, they're just dipping their toes everywhere without really diving in. So I don't know. You need a guy, and maybe it's not even them. Let me pull up real quick the free agent list. I always have it on my phone. I mean, you're not. I don't think you need Valdez. I'm not a big Valdez fan myself personally, but I mean, there's some other guys that you maybe not want. Maybe don't want on long-term deals like a Chris Bassett or a Nick Martinez. They're older. Merrill Kelly, older. I don't know. I mean, those are probably guys you don't want to sign multi-year deals. That's probably 1 year deal guy. You probably need somebody that you can sign on a multi-year deal, so that you have something next season. And one that's kind of interesting to me because he's only 30, and I keep coming back to it, but he's had injury issues and he hasn't been necessarily great ever, like when he's pitched recently. But I want to believe there's still something there. Is Lucas Giolito? Like, he's not that old. You get him probably pretty cheap on a multi-year deal. He's 31. I mean, he's 31. I mean, either way, he's younger than a lot of the starting pitchers on the market. You can get him on a 3-4 year deal. He pitched 145 innings last year. He had a 3.41 ERA. It's not bad, 1.29 WHIP. He wasn't fantastic, but he wasn't bad. And I think that you certainly might be able to unlock something a little bit in there and bring him back to maybe his best version of himself. He's not too old to reach that. So that could be an interesting one for them to go after. I was looking at Tyler Mahle too. I can't remember my thoughts on him, but he's not very old either. I think he's also only about 31. Let me pull him up and see. So yeah, he's 31, and he only pitched 86 innings, but he had a 2.18 ERA for whatever that matters to you. But his pitching run value was 14. He was in the 87th percentile. His fastball run value was 8, which was 82nd percentile. His off-speed run value was 5, which was 89th percentile. The only one that wasn't in the red was his breaking run value, which was still a net positive of 1. So he's a pretty good option. Like, and he's not being discussed at all, but he could be somebody that you could bring in on a couple of years, and that's just like a number 3 starter. Ideally, you want the bigger name. You want somebody who can, step in and be a frontline starter. There's not many options on the market right now for that, unless you want to get Valdez, who I personally just don't want. Seems like a clubhouse issue. He isn't a strikeout guy for the most part. He's a ground ball pitcher. I don't know how well he's going to age. He's already 32. So, I don't know. I mean, Michael King is a guy that I really like. I like his fit. He's a good strikeout pitcher. He's a year younger than Valdez. I just like his fit better. Another option you can go after is Dustin May. I mean, there's something certainly there in his past that made him successful. He's struggled again with a lot of injuries and a lot of issues coming back from those injuries, but maybe you identify him as an option and you unlock something, and all of a sudden he's a potential frontline number 2, number 3 starter again, and that would be pretty good. Tony Gonsolin's a name that I didn't even know was a free agent. He was really good at one point in time. I'm not saying that these are ideal targets, but they give you options at the very least of guys to go after and see what you can make of them. Ideally, and I know I've said this a couple times, you go get a guy like a Zach Gallen or a Michael King, and that's the move. But I see them operating more in the market of the guys I was just talking about. I would have liked Mike Soroka as an option, just because there's something there with him too. He's only 28 years old. He's had his ups and downs, but I think that he's a good pitcher, and I don't know what they're going to do. They're probably going to operate more in that market. Walker Buehler is a free agent. Maybe even though he was really bad with Boston again, like after being bad with LA before that, maybe they still think that they can bring the best back out of him. So you just never know what's going to happen. So I don't know what's next. I don't know what they're going to move. They need a hitter, maybe 2. They need a pitcher, a starting pitcher, and they need probably 1 or 2 bullpen arms. That's a lot of 40-man roster moves. That's a lot of shifting around, but it's necessary to elevate your team. So I don't know who you get, who you end up DFAing to fit them on the roster. I think actually, if I'm correct, there are 40 mans down to 38 guys now after something. I honestly don't even remember. I think they're at 38 guys. So I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. I hope next time I sit down to record one of these, I have more information of things that they have done that I can talk about and be excited about, or hopefully not be mad about. So the future of this podcast, though, I don't know. I don't have a set schedule I want to do. I kind of just want to get my thoughts out when I want to get them out. And I don't know how many people are actually going to tune into this. I don't know if there's anybody even making it to this part of the video or listening this far into the podcast. But if you did, I really appreciate it. I would love if you subscribed somehow, if it's on YouTube or if it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you are. Just, continue to listen and, reach out to me on Twitter. Let me know what you think. Tell me ideas you have. I would love to, learn how to make this something people would care about, and maybe, have people on and talk about Tigers baseball. So I appreciate you listening in. I'm going to end it here. Hopefully there's more, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you. If I can end this.